Lobsterfight has just put out their second full-length album, Sun Soaking. It's a monster. Let's talk about it. Grasshopper and I starts off with a light-hearted piano riff into a drum roll, and then the song just explodes. And right off the bat, you can really tell that this album is a lot different than their previous releases. There's still the noise, there's still the chaos that, you know, Lobsterfight has been kind of known for, but there's something about it that just sort of sticks all together a little bit better than their previous releases, and you can tell this just right off the bat. When the chorus kicks in, it just feels like a warm summer day, and it's really just an amazing open to the album as a whole. It's probably just my brain being weird, but it's sort of subconsciously organized this album into day-night cycles, and I think that this is what I would consider the beginning of the first day. The ebb and flow of the album feels a lot like a summer day into evening, to a dream sequence, into a summer day, into an evening, to a dream sequence. Sets up for some really interesting dynamics. The next song on the album is the theme for this evening's warm dinner salad. This song kind of starts off with a lot of the noisiness that you would typically hear from some of their previous releases. This song really reminds me so much of Algerian Cold Water. I'm going to lose all my emo cred because I can never say that fucking band's name right, but you know the band that I'm talking about. I don't want to hear you in my comments. Algerian Cold Water, Chaldean. But the band sounds a lot like that, but just instead of guitars, they use piano, and I think that this song is really like the first time that you can hear that very clearly, and that sound really persists throughout the rest of the album. The song runs for nearly 10 minutes, and right around the 3-minute mark, you get your first big sort of payoff and climax of the song with the chorus. And again, it just has strong summer evening vibes, which is actually very fitting considering the title of the album is Sun Soaking, and the name of the album actually comes from this chorus. Every chorus on the song is super rewarding, and shortly after our first one, it sort of takes a break and plays with a lot of the motifs that were sort of established in the earlier parts of the song. And the fact that it plays with those motifs and kind of keeps them going makes the song feel really rewarding and really powerful every time they sort of come back around. It's one of my favorite songs off the album just because it delivers so much. Every time I listen to it, you know that those moments are coming, and they sort of tease it, and they tease it, and they tease it, and they throw it in your face, and it's like, yes! Easily my favorite song off the album. Lambert Goes to Dinner is the third song on the album. It starts with some toy piano sounds before just coming at you full force, which is kind of jarring, but in the best way, especially coming off the last half minute or so of the theme for this evening's dinner salad, which is basically dogs barking and sparse piano and like some field noises. Having the energy just being thrown right back into your face is, like I said, jarring, but like in the best way possible. It really grabs your attention. They have some harmonica in this song, which I really love, and it might be the harmonica, but this song does give me weird Billy Joel vibes, but it's probably the harmonica, my brain making connections that aren't actually there. However, this whole album, again, it kind of feels like a Billy Joel or like a Frank Sinatra album, but on crack. Lambert Goes to Dinner is a very bouncy song. There's a lot of bounce to it, and the song closes out with some like violin, which is like a really nice, again, kind of awkward juxtaposition to the early half of the song, but it fits well because it plays with the motifs already established throughout the song. Afterwards is the next song on the album, and it follows Lambert Goes to Dinner really nicely, just because Lambert Goes to Dinner has this nice slow decline after being super bouncy with the violins, and it goes into Afterwards, which is a very quiet song for the rest of the album. The song very slowly builds up, but it has this very, I'm jumping through a fields after my first kiss kind of feeling. But in comparison to the lyrics, it's actually somewhat of a strange juxtaposition. The lyrics are actually very nervous and anxious, but the song feels, like I said, like some kind of jumping through the fields after your first kiss. Eye darting, nail biting, stirring deep down, and afterwards I'll be under the tree hoping to be a ghost you can't see. It's one of those songs that just kind of, the message and the lyrics kind of clash with the vibe of the song, but it's really sweet and endearing. I really like this song a lot. Grass Ripping is the next song, and This is the first song that I would consider sounds like the day is coming to an end. So the first few songs were like the day, and Grass Ripping is like the sun is setting and the night is coming. Kind of just a vibe. I think it's meant mostly as an interlude. It leads into My Grasshopper, I See the Sun Soaking Through Your Teeth. It's a nice instrumental break. The song runs for 4 minutes and 20 seconds, which may or may not be a coincidence. There's this violin and shaker and the piano just kind of repetitively playing the same note, and it sort of drives and drives and drives, and it eventually builds into this moment that has the feeling of waves crashing, but during your most strange nightmare, like those nightmares that aren't really bad, but they are still anxiety inducing and kind of scary. That's kind of what the song feels like. And again, that's probably my brain making weird connections with the day-night cycle, but it feels very dreamlike and atmospheric. After my imagined dream sequence, we get Let's Run Through the Cornfields. The song opens up very loud, and I think it establishes the loud-quiet dynamic, which is very present on this album. This is another song that really brings to mind Algerian Cloudwater, Algerian Cloudwater, Algerian Cloudwater, Algerian Cloudwater, Algerian Cloudwater, and snowing. But instead of guitar, it's piano. This song has a lot going on. I would say that it's one of the more chaotic songs, but it feels like it's being pulled forward by the vocal lines. It feels like the whole song is sort of being carried by the vocal lines. They're acting sort of as the glue that's holding all this chaos together. And that sort of pulling the song along builds into this massive emotional explosion at the end of the song. It's one of the only times that there's anything close to screaming on the album, and it fits very well. It makes this part of the album feel very impactful. It's one of my favorite moments on the album, just as a singular moment. It's just this sort of last verse on this song. And it sort of goes down into what I can only describe as like a Tim Burton cartoon funeral march. I know that's a very weird comparison to make, but that's what it sounds like. It really makes the song feel like it has a lot of weight, and ending it with this somber moment just intensifies the emotional explosion that you just went through. It's a really beautiful part of the album, in my opinion. The next song is Grass Planting, and it starts with the same, or what sounds like the same musical motifs as the theme for this evening's warm dinner salad, but it very quickly evolves into something else. The chorus on this one I like especially because it feels like something that you would just sing along with all your boys on a drunken night. The song switches between these loud verses to these cute, tiny toy piano bits that just grow right into the chorus that, like I said, sounds like this massive sing-along sort of moment. The next song is I Think There's an Exit. This song is split into two sections, and I think that it's meant to be sort of a break from some of the madness, and it delivers that. It's another interlude. The song, again, for me at least, feels like the day is coming to an end, especially in the second half, and, you know, you're preparing to dream, and the next song feels a lot like a dream. Harvest is the next song, and it is a very interesting song. There's this sort of motif with a xylophone and what I guess is a bell. So you have a xylophone on one side and a bell on the other side, and they're playing these almost contradicting parts, and it makes the whole thing feel like some kind of video game dream sequence. Harvest is another one of the songs that is kind of split up into two different parts. In the second half, the bells drop out, but the xylophone kind of continues, and it feels more conscious as it slowly builds into the third section, which swells, and everything kind of comes back in. Your xylophone comes back in, your bells come back in, and something about it just feels like this very chaotic and cracked out Frank Sinatra song. I know that that is a very weird description, but a cracked out Frank Sinatra song. It's beautiful. It is literally beautiful. New Flowers for Grasshopper, it starts with a very standard Midwestern emo math rock guitar. The song feels like the most standards in terms of what you would expect to hear from an emo album, which is kind of what this is at its heart. This album doesn't have a ton of choruses, but when they have a chorus, it delivers, and I think this song does so the most. This is another song that's chorus just feels like you're going to scream this along with all your pals in a basement, and we love that here. The last song is As We Commence, One Day at a Time. The song brings back the sort of Frank Sinatra vibe, but it's a little bit more dreary and sleepy. It's not quite the Frank Sinatra on crack as much as it is just a very quiet and sort of somber and chill ending to the album. The album ends with this sort of quiet moment, which is interesting considering how much noise is on this album and how loud and dynamic it is. And the album feels like it's being laid to rest. And it ends with this very sweet and sincere line. Then one day, at the perfect time, our hearts will hopefully beat in sync once more again. And it just sort of slowly fades out with some oohs and ahs. And it's just this really quiet, sentimental moment on what, like what I said, was a very loud and dynamic album. I'll be honest, I had to listen to this album probably 10 or 15 times before I could really start to articulate my exact feelings on it. Every time I listened, I heard a new instrument being played, a new synthesizer, or melodica, or saxophone, or something new going on, and I think that I will continue to hear new things every time that I listen to it. This is honestly a true masterclass of DIY songwriting and recording. I really think this album is going to be passed around and talked about for a really long time. I think that this is going to be one of those albums that when people look back on Fifth Wave is just sort of a staple of this wave. It's an amazing album. The easiest 9 out of 10 that I could ever give. It's beautiful. If you haven't listened to it, do yourself a fucking favor and listen to this album. Seriously. I'll leave a link to all of Lobsterfight's social medias, as well as a Spotify and Bandcamp link in the description down below. If you are new to the channel, consider subscribing. I will also have my socials in the links down below if you feel so inclined to follow me on any of them. Be sure to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.